At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy is the CAD of the future. It's cloud-aided dispatch, not dinosaur computer-aided dispatch that looks like it was built in the 1980s. Rapid Deploy's cloud-native CAD, mapping, and analytics increase situational awareness for call takers, dispatchers, and responders. Rapid Deploy is taking public safety by storm. It's fast and easy to deploy, with implementation in days, not years. It's affordable for all agencies of all sizes. Rich in features, functionality, and data, it's also reliable and secure as we use Microsoft Azure Government Cloud. Go to rapiddeploy.com to learn more.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be episode 392 of Within the Trenches, true stories of the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy, and we are quickly approaching a milestone of episode 400. Man, it's crazy to think that I'm going on episode 400 here pretty soon. When I first started this out, I didn't know what was going to happen. As many of you know, and some of you who are new to the show that don't know, all of this started back in 2010 as a college project, and it was a passion project. But for a while building up to this project, I'd been struggling with my time in dispatch, sharing stories. I would bury my calls. I really didn't talk or anything about it. There was that fear of looking weak, and I was playing around with the idea of sharing stories because a lot of people, and still to this day, a lot of people don't know what it is that dispatch does. And I wanted to do something to help people understand, whether it be in the general public or those out on the road. Excuse me. I wanted to do something to help out, and also it was therapeutic for me to share my stories. So 2010, got with a couple of coworkers and asked them to tell their story, and it all went from there. And here we are, years later, and it's right now. It's July 2nd, 2021. And it has been an amazing experience, and it's going to continue to be an amazing experience. And I thank all of you for the continued support throughout all these years for the podcast, for the I Am 911 movement, Imagine Listening, Open Mic, for everything that I've been doing for the entire Code 7 Podcast Network, Within the Trenches Media, all of it. Thank you for everything. And we continue to share stories, and we continue to go on so that people can learn, and for these important stories to get out there. So again, thank you. A big shout out to the patrons. Um, I wouldn't be able to do everything that it is that I do if it wasn't for all of you, and of course, for you who listen, share, support, and it's just been so good. There's, it's hard to put it into words sometimes because I still can't believe that that we're here building up to this milestone. Now, what I'm hoping to happen is that when I'm at the Navigator Conference, um, this is going to be July 13th through the 15th, 2021, that I'll be able to record episode 400 there. When I did episode 300, I was doing Imagine Listening, and it was during an open mic session, um, and it was amazing. It was standing room only, and we were able to record this, and actually we went live for the first part of it, as we started out that episode. So that was amazing. So I'm hoping that we can do something similar at the Navigator Conference. I'm going to be there along with a bunch of amazing people, and it's a conference that you don't want to miss. So if you're just kind of on the fence right now, if you have the opportunity, make sure to head out there. I'm going to put this here. There you go, navigator.emergencydispatch.org. And Navigator is an excellent conference. It's put on by the IAED, and they are amazing as always. Not only putting this on and having a bunch of amazing speakers there and an awesome expo hall, but they are hosting the podcast again this year, and I'm going to be there in booth 412. So you can stop in and record an episode with me, and also attend the Imagine Listening session. It's going to be on July 13th as well as the 15th. Doing an encore session, but make sure to check that out. And also to be able to check out their closing speaker, which is Marley Matlin. Amazing person. Her credentials just reach, far exceed a lot of others. And she also has an app for the basics of sign language to check out. So make sure to check that out. Make sure to be there and check out her closing session. I'm going to be there as well. It's going to be an excellent one. And again, thank you to the IAED and Navigator for hosting the podcast. And we are excited to be back. And we'll be doing some episodes with them as well, talking about what they're doing and so much more. So make sure to check that out. I've got 4 stories that I want to share today. As I mentioned in episode, I think 388 it was, I'm going to do some more episodes like I did in the beginning where, I've always had a guest on. But there were a lot of episodes where I was just talking, on my own. I was just talking and sharing some of my stories, some reflections, thoughts on other issues that are going on in the 911 world. But I want to share a few stories here, and I'll warn you right off the bat. And there's a warning in the beginning of every episode, right? So these 2 stories that I'm going to start out with are kind of pretty heavy. So just a warning of what I'm going to be talking about. And but the last 2 stories, are good stories. They're ones that when I say good, I mean they're saves and some other things that happen. So we're going to start out just like Imagine Listening, emotionally intense, and then we're going to end with some lighthearted stories. So the first one is one that I have several calls that stick with me. This one was one of the ones where I had been asked afterward if I was okay. And of course I said, sure. Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. But I wasn't fine. In fact, I was messed up by it. It was, I can still, even now, hear everything in my head. And the descriptions, during this call, are ones that that stick with me. I've written about it. I've talked about it. in front of many people in a conference. But I tell it as well because I want people to know that it's okay not to be okay, that it's okay to talk about this stuff, and that if you need help, to go ahead and reach out, that it's okay. Um, so again, a warning as we get into these first two stories. But again, hang in there or fast forward to the middle of this episode for the lighthearted stories. So, sometimes when we're going through something, it's a voice, right, that we listen to or that we hear that can bring so much peace and calm into our lives. And it's true for both, right? For the callers, they put so much trust in a voice when they're calling for help. And depending on our tone, that sets the mood for the entire call, right? And when the call comes in and you hear someone screaming, you're trying to get their attention, you're trying to get the information. And especially now, most people are calling from a cell phone. So you don't have that location right away. So you're trying to get a location the best that you can. And for this specific call, I don't remember what year it was, but we didn't have the technology that's out there right now where we could take that cell phone number, put it into some browser-based software, and get a location. We didn't have that. We only had the ability to triangulate a coordination, um, of coordinates rather, from the cell phone towers. Now, a lot of times when they come in, and this is going kind of into the technical piece of it, when it comes in, so there's two different phases, and they're called wireless phase 1 and wireless phase 2, and the location off the phase 1 is the tower, and it can go as far as almost 12-mile radius from there. When you get that phase 2, I think it's 3 miles or so, a little over 3 miles that you can get, but it's anywhere from whatever the location is, that they're at, and those coordinates when you do a phase 2. So either way, it's not the greatest. It's a lot better, but it's not the greatest. So you didn't have a location. You've got someone who's calling in and they're screaming, and you're trying to get their information. Luckily, with this one, if I remember correctly, there was a location in there, and we're doing this as an unknown situation, but there was a trick that I learned early on, that if you have a caller that that is hysterical, that you can't get anything through to that person because they're just yelling and screaming, you can bring your voice down to a whisper, and it kind of tricks them a little bit to think, is there anyone actually there? Because when someone is screaming and you're saying, hello, can you hear me? What's your address? What's your address? It's like background noise. Like, they know it's there, but they just continue, to scream and all. So by bringing your voice down to a whisper and that background noise not being there anymore, they stop for a moment and they end up asking, is there someone there? This doesn't always work, but whenever I did it, it actually did work. And in this specific call, it worked as well. And the caller ended up saying or asking, is anyone there? And I jumped in right away and I said, yes. What is your address? She told me the address and phone number, got her name, got all the pertinent information that I needed as people were headed out to that location already. So When the call first came in, though, it sounded like two women screaming. And I remember already, I've got my I've got my dispatch ear going because I'm listening to everything in the call, like everything in that person's environment. I'm listening to what I think is two women screaming and then any other noises that are going on in the background. And I'm just typing and typing and typing and asking questions. Now, what had happened was the second female, or what I thought was a second female, it actually turned out to be male. My caller, this was her boyfriend. He was screaming so loud that and in such a high pitch that it sounded like it was two females, but it wasn't. And the reason for his screaming that high. So what ended up happening, what she told me was that her and her boyfriend and her boyfriend's brother were at a bar. And they were there just having a couple drinks, trying to relax. Her boyfriend's brother had recently gone through a breakup. It might have been that day. He'd gone through a breakup and was very upset about it. He just kept saying that he wanted to kill himself. And they kept telling him, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. There's more to life. And they end up going home. And this is already late at night that this is going on. They end up going home. It was also wintertime. And the boyfriend's brother is standing outside and still upset. And starts mentioning again that he just wants to kill himself. So the caller's boyfriend ends up going inside and gets a gun. And the gun is loaded. And he takes it outside and he gives it to his brother. And he says, well, if you're going to do it, go ahead and do it. And he gives him the gun. Now, he said this to him thinking that if he put this, I guess, reality in front of him, that he would realize that it wasn't a good idea. That it might scare him straight, for lack of a better way to put it. And his brother took the gun and he did it. He shot himself in the head. And that's why the caller's boyfriend was screaming in that high of a pitch. I remember hearing him in the background yelling, I can't believe he did it. I can't believe he fucking did it. Why would he do it? I can see myself sitting there while I'm taking this call and typing that, what the person in the background was saying. And I can see him in my head just being hysterical and screaming and crying that he just lost his brother. That actually just happened. And I'm trying to find out where the weapon is. It's on the floor. Or it was outside rather, and the boyfriend had brought it in and left it on the floor in the living room. And I'm trying to get her to safety and make sure that her boyfriend is okay as well. And I'm asking if there's any way, to check on the brother. Is the brother okay? Is he gone, or what is going on? And all of this, it feels like it's taking a long time. But I remember looking back into that call, and it was only a few minutes long, but it felt like forever as this was going on. And I remember at one point, the caller's boyfriend ends up getting the gun, and he's yelling in the background saying that he's going to shoot himself because of what just happened. And he runs outside with it, and I was waiting to hear a gunshot. And he ran back inside and dropped the weapon and went back outside. And my caller ended up getting the gun and putting it away. And she was staying separated from him. And she just kept telling him, it's okay, it's okay. Help is on the way. Help is on the way. And I told her, I said, ma'am, EMS is heading that way. They're going to have to stage. And because at this point, I don't know how bad it is. And when I tell her who all is en route that way, he runs back in, and I remember hearing her say, EMS is headed this way. Everything is going to be just don't worry. Everything is going to be okay. And she didn't know how bad it was either. And, but again, says to him, the paramedics, EMS is on their way too. And I'll never forget him saying, he yells out to her and says, what the fuck are they going to do? My brother's face is all over the snow. Another moment that I won't forget, those exact words of him saying that and then realizing how bad this is. I mean, it was bad enough, but we didn't have all of that information until that moment, asking, how that person was and everything. And she couldn't tell me because she wasn't out there. She didn't know. And trying to ask him, he was so hysterical. He couldn't give any information either until that moment when she said that EMS was on the way. And there was nothing that could be done. In my mind, I'm picturing all of this happening. It's one thing to see it up front when you get there, the aftermath. But when this is going on, and this is, what some people don't understand, those out in the field, those in the general public, you end up creating this picture in your mind of what it is that's going on. And sometimes it's worse than what it actually is. But in this case, it was bad. It was really bad. So in my mind, and as an empath, putting myself in their shoes on what it is that's going on and thinking about my own brother, while still staying calm, right? But this is in the back of my head, thinking and hurting. What if I lost my brother? Like, this is crazy. I can't even believe that this is happening right now. And then the officers get out there, and they're out front with him, with the both of them. And I end up hanging up with her, telling her that she did a good job during the call and giving me information and everything. And for her to go and to wait there, rather, for them to, to come in to talk to her. And I get off the phone, and I'm sitting there, and I remember just kind of looking down a little bit after that call and hearing, "Are you okay?" And I turn around and I look at my supervisor, and I said, yeah, I'm all right. I'm all right. She goes, "Are you sure?" And I said, yeah. I said, that was a pretty crazy call, but yeah, I'm fine. But for the rest of the night, damn. For the rest of that night, I was messed up, and there was only a couple hours left of the shift, and it just kept replaying in my head and replaying and replaying and replaying, and the screams, the yells, the words, the descriptions, all of it. It just kept going and going. And I remember I couldn't wait to get out of there. I could not wait to get out of dispatch that shift because I wanted to call my brother. I needed to hear his voice. I needed to know he was okay. And it's pretty early in the morning. It's about 5 in the morning when I leave dispatch. And I called him, and the phone was ringing and ringing, and I just kept saying, I remember as I'm driving, I kept saying out loud, please answer the phone, man. Answer the phone. And then the phone picks up, and I hear, hello? And of course, it's that early in the morning. That's how he's going to sound, half awake. And I said, I love you, man. And he goes, what? And I said, I love you. And he goes, shut the hell up. Of course, so it's something that your brother would say, right? Or sibling. And I said, no, man, I'm serious. I said, I love you. And he said, what's wrong? And I said, I had a pretty hard night, dude, in dispatch. And he goes, well, what happened? And I told him about that entire call. I told him everything. I just opened the floodgates and I just let it go. I let it rip. And I remember at the end of it, hearing him say, I love you too, man. As I said earlier, sometimes it takes just a voice, right? Whether it's for us as the call taker or dispatcher, or those who are calling in for help. Sometimes we just need a voice. And that voice can bring so much calm and peace into the chaos that can be 911 or our lives in general. And that night, or that morning rather, that's what I needed. I needed that voice. And it was my brother's voice. And that's what it took to help me feel better about that call. It wasn't talking to anybody else about it, at least not at that point. I'm able to talk about this story now and push people, to talk more about their calls. But for me that day, I needed to talk to my brother. Again, I needed to know he was okay because I had put myself in that situation, in those shoes. That was a hard one. But we made it through and we continue on, and things are good. But again, it just takes a voice sometimes. Now, this next call, I want to share actually a picture here because it's an IM 911 story that I shared a long time ago. So the story says, I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Hashtag IM 911. This call here was during the last 2 weeks that I was in dispatch. It was almost as if the dispatch gods decided to give me every shit call ever for those last 2 weeks. I think there was one good one, the very last call that I took ended up being a good one. And one that I'll, talk about on a later episode. But these last 2 weeks, this was one of them. This was one that really made me second guess, I guess, what I did during this call. So this call comes in, right? And it was a girl who called in. She was a teenager, maybe 15 or 16, if I remember correctly. She had called in for a disorderly subject. A guy had come into her home, was upset, was yelling, was throwing things around. He was no longer there, but they wanted to talk to somebody about it. And, I got the person's name, description, everything. And we were going to be sending an officer out there. Now, this is around shift change time as well. We just all come in for the night shift. And this is the first call that I end up taking that day. And it started. It's you see this story and you think, okay, this call started as a disorderly. The person wasn't there. So how did it turn to this? Well, at the end of the call, which didn't take that long, she ends up telling me, I think he's suicidal as well. Put on the brake, the emergency brake, because you didn't mention this at all in the beginning. Nowhere was it mentioned if this person was suicidal. Because of the nature of the call, the person was just upset, and there was nothing that led to this person possibly being suicidal until the very end, when the person just says, oh, I think they might be suicidal as well. Well, why do you think that? Because that completely changes the whole magnitude of this call. We got to find this person if they are, to make sure that they're okay. So she ends up saying, that a couple weeks ago or something to that effect, this person was acting the same way. It was kind of saying that they didn't want to be in the world anymore, and they didn't take it seriously. And then this time they decided to mention it. So I already have the person's name, description. I end up getting the vehicle description as well, and a phone number, so I can try to call this person. Again, this call didn't take that long. So as soon as I get off the phone, and I've already got this in the narrative, I'm yelling over to the person on the radio saying what I just updated it with, and that we needed to step up the officers because I'm trying to call this person right now. And I call, and the phone is ringing, Again, this is shift change. We've got 4 people in there. It was on a weekend. We've got 4 people in there, but it's so busy that I end up having to hang up and pick up the next line, the next call that's coming in. Because when I called, it was like as soon as I started hearing it ring, this one call came in. And I'm hoping that someone else is able to pick it up, and they're unable to, because again, it's that busy. So I hang up the phone and I pick up the other line, and it's a gentleman who is saying that he just witnessed a car going full speed that went into a ditch and drove straight into a tree. And they were pretty close to the vehicle, and I asked if there was any way possible that they could, after the location and getting all that information, if there was any way possible that they could safely see if the person was okay, or at least yell out from far away, to see if somebody answered them or would answer them. And I remember the caller saying to me, I'm not sure that there's any way possible that whoever was driving would live through what I just saw. So I asked him about the vehicle, and that was the thing that has stuck with me. Because I knew the vehicle description. And when he went to tell me, I remember lipping what he said. And it was a blue Toyota Tercel. Now, you don't see a lot of Tercels. I don't think they make them anymore, unless somebody still owns one from a while ago. But shortly after this call, every time I saw a blue Toyota Tercel, it reminded me of this call. So he gives me that description, and my heart sank. The crazy thing was that I kind of felt that this was the person that I was looking for already. And then he gave me that, and I remember yelling over, and I said, I'm pretty sure that this vehicle accident is the person that we're looking for. An officer started heading that way, and sure enough, it was. It was the person that we were looking for. And that person didn't make it. After that call, I remember sitting there, second guessing my questioning and thinking, oh, maybe if I would have said it this way, she would have mentioned what she mentioned at the end in the beginning. And maybe the phone call that I made to this person, I would have been able to get through to them. I would have been able to save them. I was beating myself up about it. And remember, this is the last 2 weeks that I'm in dispatch, because I'm moving into becoming an industry partner for 911, which is basically the private sector. And I was able to take a moment. When I say a moment, I mean like 30 to like 40 minutes to examine this call, to the point where I was mapping out the distance and the time from when I hung up to calling this person, and the distance. Because I remember when the call came in for this accident, I was looking at the location, then I was looking at the location of the call that I originally took, and I thought, that's not far. That is not that far at all from there. This has got to be this person. And it turned out that it was. So I was going through my questioning and just thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it, and then finally realizing there's nothing that I could have done that would have changed the outcome. This person already had it in their mind that they were going to do this, and there was nothing that could change it. I would not have been able to get a hold of this person, and the questioning and everything that I had, I did everything that I could do, but it took me analyzing and beating myself up about this, about not being able to somehow save this person, to finally realize that I had done everything that I could. But that's something that we do. That's something that people don't understand as well, is that these calls, whether we could change it or not, they stick with us. And sometimes we second guess what we do, but everything ended up being okay. I remember speaking to some of those out in the field, and they're like, yeah, man, there's nothing you could have done that would have changed this. And in the time already that I was talking to this person on the phone, the original caller, that person was already on their path heading over there. But it's a call that'll stick with me for sure, because it was one that I was trying to call, and I was hoping that I could get through And even during that time when the phone was ringing and ringing, in my head, I was thinking, okay, what am I going to say to this person? Okay, this is what I'm going to say to this person. And I'm going to try to find where they're at, and we're going to get them help. You can do this. But they had already crashed. That last 2 weeks in dispatch were crazy. It was just full of calls like this, where, again, felt like the dispatch gods were like, you're going out, and you are going out the way we want you to go out, with every hard call. But I'm glad it was me. In the end, I'm glad it was me who ended up going through all of that. And, taking that original call, trying to reach out to this person, and then taking the call of the accident. Because of the fact that I'd been the one who started the call, I knew everything that was going on. So I was able to do it and handle it, and be able to deal with it later, where others might not have been able to do the same thing. I fully believe that our experience in life helps us with a lot of calls that we end up taking, because we would be able to respond to it a lot better having that experience, more so than someone who doesn't have it. So I'm actually thankful for this call, that I was able to be the one to deal with it. So we've gone through both of those hard calls. I mentioned in the beginning that there was going to be those hard ones. Well, let's move over to some lighthearted calls here, because there are those in 911. 911 isn't always doom and gloom. There are some rare good ones. There is good in 911. Even some that start out crazy and hard, but then end up being, good at the end. So I mentioned earlier, it's July 2nd today. We're just a couple days away from the 4th of July. And I remember one 4th of July in dispatch. It was early in the morning, and I was training someone that morning. Now, during this time, we were so short-staffed. Everyone was a trainer. Everyone was going to be a trainer. I think we had about 9 people. 9 people that had come in as a group that were going to be starting together. Maybe it was more like 6. I don't know. It was a while ago. But there was a big group that was coming in. So we were all going to be training people so that we could get them through the training program and, get a hold of the center, because we were crazy short staff. So this morning I take a phone call, and I've got my trainee sitting next to me. I take a phone call. Again, it's 4th of July. And I have a male caller, a dad, who's about to be a dad. And I know I've told this story before, but again, not everybody goes to the beginning of the podcast. So I like going back and reflecting on some of these for new listeners who are coming in, who come in at the newest episode. And so I'm taking this call, and this guy is just out of his mind, freaking out, because he's about to be a dad again. And I'm going through the protocol. And so for those who don't know, and not all dispatch centers do it this way, but the center that I was at, we are EMD certified. So EMD is emergency medical dispatch. We got to take a training course to be able to do this, so that we can take medical calls. And there's this Again, a lot of places have it more streamlined where they have it on their computers, but they're these cards. They're like this big, and you flip by some of the questions that you're asking and figuring out what it is that they're dealing with medically. You flip to that card, and there are instructions on there, and you read the instructions and you go through it with the caller to be able to just determine the priority. And priority 1, 2, and 3. Priority 1, lights and sirens, like they're going as fast as hell to get to you. Priority 2 is basically the same, but priority 3, there's no lights and sirens, and they're going, they're headed there to get you. They're just not hauling ass. Well, this one, I'm pretty sure this was it's either the second or third child, and I think it was the second one. And I'm going through this protocol with the dad and having him, get, towels, get a shoestring, you have to tie the umbilical cord off. I think it's 6 inches from the belly button. I'm trying to remember all of the protocol now. It's been a while, but I remember going through all of this with him, and I can hear her in the background, and my trainee is just sitting there like, what? And I'm pretty sure it was her first day. It was her first day, or maybe her second day coming in, and she's sitting there listening. Excuse me. And I end up hearing, and I said, "Sir, what are you doing? What is going on?" And he goes, "What? Why?" And I said, "It sounds like you're running or something. Are you running?" And and he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Sir, where are you going?" And I said, "You left your wife by herself?" And he goes, "Sir, I gotta drop my my other kid off at the neighbors." Like, so they had this planned already, that if she went into labor, that he was going to drop off the kid. Well, they're about to have this kid in their home. Okay, so it kind of changed a little bit. He runs next door because he's saying, we're going to have to go to the hospital when the ambulance gets here. So I need to run my kid next door. But he never said a word while he was on the phone saying that he was going to do this. So all I can imagine is his wife is probably, what the, where are you going? Do you not see what's going on here? And I'm pretty sure at the time, the baby was crowning. So I hear that just, and it's him running, huffing and puffing, running with his other kid to the neighbor's house to drop the kid off, and then he's running back. He's running back, and he gets there. The baby's not, or when he gets there, the baby's already out. And I thought, oh man, well, congratulations. And EMS had just gotten there as well. And but I was, man, I didn't get the credit for it, because when you're in dispatch, and not all dispatch centers do this, but if you assist with delivering a baby over the phone, you get to become, you get on the board, and you get a stork pin. Well, I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna get a stork pin. Like, this is gonna be awesome. But because he left and came back, the baby was already out, and EMS had gotten there, and I didn't get to officially assist, I guess, with that, because I never got a pin. Oh, I was so upset about it, man. It sucked. But I was also so happy for them, that they had but I didn't even have a chance to see if it was a boy or a girl. So I remember asking later on. I asked EMS, and they said it was a girl. I was like, damn it, I wish I would have been able to ask, because I could have said, my name's Ricardo, so I could have said, you can name her Ricarda. But it was such a cool moment, and it's one that I'll never forget, because being a dad myself, I think about the times where I just kind of lost my mind in dad land, because you're like, okay, you got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, and you're freaking out. And of course, the mother of your children is like, dude, I got this. Like, we're fine. Chill out. So in this case, probably the same thing. The dude goes to take off and is hauling ass running and is trying to get all this stuff figured out. And the mom is just, we've done this before. We've been here. But I didn't get that pin. So either way, that's one that I'll always remember. 4th of July is always, to remember of many things, our freedom and just those who fought as well, and just a lot of things. But for me specifically, on the 4th of July, I think about that call, and I think about that stork pin I was robbed of. But such a good moment. See, there's, like I said, there is a lot of good in 911. So this next one that I want to share as I'm going into, kind of the wrap up of this episode. I'm going to throw this up on the screen, and for those of you who are listening right now to the podcast, I'll tell you what it is that's going up there. So this picture that I'm looking at right now is actually a couple screenshots, and it's also a screenshot. StoryCorps was asking for about stories, so I shared this story with them, and I want to share this with you as well. So this was one of the coolest moments, and I still have this clipping to this day. I still have this clipping, and what happened was, I take this call. It's wintertime. I take this call, and a mom is calling in. She's hysterical, trying to get through to her, finally able to get through to her. Actually, it might have been another moment where I brought my voice down to a whisper to be able to, kind of get her to stop, and then got the information. And what had happened was that her kids were outside, and they were all sledding. They were going down the hill, and they were trying to see who would get the furthest. And the youngest ends up winning. However, she ends up going into the middle of their this big pond that they had out there, and it was thin ice, and mom couldn't get out there to her. And so obviously, for good reason, she was very upset. And I end up keeping her calm, and helping her and one of her kids guide in, fire rescue, and everybody who was going out there. Everyone, just police, fire, EMS, everyone was heading out there to help this little girl and this family. And they get out there, and they end up saving her, which was amazing. And I didn't want to hang up, the phone at first, because I was there with the mom, and I was keeping her calm, and she's like, thank you for staying on the line with me. And just, we just kept talking and talking. And I just remember hearing her voice, where it started with, with her being scared, how frightened she was. And then the change from her being frightened to being calm, to, I guess, just knowing that everything was going to be okay, and then they end up saving her, and everything ends up being awesome. And I remember feeling good after that call, and thinking, wow, yeah, this is what it's all about, man. Like, I just did that. I was involved in that. And then a little while later, I'm working. It's a morning shift. I'm on phones, and my supervisor at the time, she's on backup phones, and she's reading the newspaper, and she says, "Who took this call?" And I remember sitting up and thinking, is she talking about me? And I said, "What call? What are you talking about?" She goes, "There's something in the newspaper." And immediately I'm thinking, oh no. did I do something wrong? Did one of our coworkers do something wrong? Like, why would this be in the newspaper? Because, a lot of times, um, and I would say that things have changed since probably about 2016 up until now. But most of the time, when things would come out about, dispatch, especially in a newspaper or in the news or whatever, it's not always a good call, right? It's it's something bad that has happened. So I was already on alert, and she said, it was something about a water rescue or something. And then she read this to me, and it's a special thanks to the entire Allegan Fire and rescue team for saving our precious little girl Holly on Wednesday, January 25th, 2006. Everyone from the 911 dispatch to the entire response crew was just wonderful. You are appreciated and loved more than words could ever be expressed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our community is very fortunate to have each and every one of you. With sincere thanks, gratitude, respect, and love, the Curtis family. Again, I have this clipping to this day, and I remember my supervisor saying, I'm going to cut this out so that you can keep this and remember it. Because this is a good thing. And I'm glad she did, because this is one of the things that when I would look back on some of the calls that I've taken, or even if I had taken a bad call or was having a rough couple days or whatever, I would look at this clipping and remember why I got into this. And it's because I wanted to help people. And, it's a good reminder that good things do happen in 911. So I'm always going to have this. And it's an amazing moment. And that's why I share it, so that you can think and reflect on your own calls and remember why you do what you do. And you do an amazing job. 2006. Wow. That was a long time ago. But again, a call that I will never forget, because even thinking about it now, I can picture it all in my head, how the mom was describing this and what was going on, the sounds that I heard in the background, and then to hear over the radio, we got her, and everything. And everything ended up being okay. So thank you, Curtis family, for that. I will always have this with me. Whew. I want to thank you all for being here with me, whether you are watching right now or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for being here with me through these stories, and learning from my experience as well. These are some hard calls, but also some good, lighthearted ones that I'll never forget. They will always be with me. And being in 911 was an amazing experience. And it's one that I will always cherish, especially now, still in 911, but doing things from a different angle, and, being able to share these stories. So again, it's been an amazing experience, and I've loved every moment. And thank you all again for the job that you do. It's not an easy one at all, but we're here together in support by sharing stories. It's that power of storytelling, the era of the headset, and we're doing this together. So thank you. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. And if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that'll be wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. And if you're looking for any bonus material, you can check us out. That is patreon.com/WTT podcast. A big shout out and thank you to all the patrons for everything. I appreciate it more than you know. Becoming a patron, you end up getting swag. You can get t-shirts. You get early access to episodes that are coming out. You also get exclusive perks for only patrons for Open Mic Live and the Dispatchers Roundtable, which are both live broadcasts that I do. Open Mic Live, I do weekly, Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time throughout social media. And then the Dispatchers Roundtable is 2 Wednesdays a month, and that is all throughout social media, including LinkedIn Live. But audio versions, audio podcasts of that are available to patrons only right now. And again, that is patreon.com/WTT podcast, as well as Singing Badly in My Car. I've got a few new ones that are going to be coming up pretty soon, so make sure to look out for that. This episode can be seen on Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. And then audio-wise, you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have an excellent one, everyone, and I will see you soon. I'll see you in the next one.